I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. So we have with us today a friend of mine, Nikki T. She's doing me a favor, allowing me not to suffer the pain of trying to pronounce her last name properly. And Nikki is not only single, but she is also a model. And more importantly, imagine than being a model, she's a comedian. So we have high expectations of this being a very, very entertaining show. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Hi. How are you?
Great.
Thank
Thanks.
you for having me. Thank you.
You got it. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You can share whatever you want, as much as you want, as little as you want, and then we're going to jump into your feelings and perspectives of any area of the singles world that you want to delve into.
All right. I came here when I was in my early 20s. I live here about 20 years.
You're from
And
Asia?
yes, basically part of Asia is Russia. Yes.
Okay. That's okay. You got me.
It is in Asia. I'm Russian. I was born in Russia and raised in Moscow. I went to law school, but didn't finish, and I moved here.
Cool.
United States.
And you've been previously married? You have children?
I do have 15 years old who will say, all right, it's just teenage. It's very tough.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a
But I
two-year-old.
have this one.
So cute. He's so cute. I have a 2-year-old who's a teenager already also, so I get
Well,
it.
it's terrible truth with us for like 16 years. I hope
Yeah,
you're not gonna suffer that long.
yeah. Somebody once told me that terrible twos for a girl goes from 2 to 22. Just let the
Absolutely
woman
true.
handle it. As a father, stay out of
Absolutely.
the way. Yeah,
Absolutely. You just have to be, like any Jewish father,
right.
accepting.
Exactly. So what do you want to talk about? What are we going to jump into?
Um, let's talk about politics,
Politics. Okay.
Absolutely. That's probably the
Okay.
theme. When I
Hunter
came,
Biden's in politics. I think he's single.
no, he's married.
Oh, okay. You wouldn't know.
Absolutely. Come on, are you kidding me? He's married for a very long time.
Okay.
But let's talk about
Yes.
what drives this country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's politics. I
Correct.
don't see any, when I date a man, what I see a man, he's a Republican or he's a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you that's a big difference. When you date a Republican boy, it's usually he gets up when you get up. It's usually wine. It's usually St. Bart's. It's usually shopping. Good vibes. When you date any Republicans, that's what happens. But when you date a Democrat, it's a little bit different. I tell
That's
you
so
what.
interesting.
Yeah,
Let's
you
hear it.
take a bike rides, you enjoy nature.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Are you enjoying single life? Because when I have people on this show, I hear all kinds of stuff. And every once in a while, I have somebody on here that's just having a blast. And I love it because the whole point of the show is to, express your issues if you have, we want to call people out to try to improve the world and to try to improve, quality of life. But then every once in a while, you have somebody that's just has no complaints. They're just having a blast. They're learning all they're supposed to be learning from life, and they're just happy. And so when I ask you, what is your, opinion on the singles world, it doesn't necessarily have to be a problem. I mean, are you having a good time? You live in Manhattan, so that's got to be the center of the dining universe. I would imagine as a Russian, this is something you enjoy to be out there and to see the cinema and everything. You having a good time with it, or is there a part
Absolutely.
of you?
Absolutely. And being single in New York, I tell you, that's it's like a Sex in the City. No, really,
Oh,
it's no change. Meaning that New York is amazing by itself, but let's say that it's used to be more complicated in a way, because you have to go out, you have to meet people. Now you have like a little app, you don't have to leave your apartment, you know, to meet new people, to go out, to, and that's also, you know, it's like a double sword. Because before you have to hold on to this relationship to one person, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to meet anybody else like him or her. And now with this stamina, like lots of sea, like a fish in the sea, it's also, you know, it's a double sword. I tell you that.
I know, and I felt this myself, but I've heard it being said that the problem with the internet is that it makes you feel lonely because you feel like you have exposure to so many people while you're sitting there in your underwear on your couch alone in your living room.
Absolutely.
So you got to make sure to act on it. Sorry.
Especially in New York, it's like about 10 million people in New York, right? And you feel like you are in demand, right? It's like, come on, what, I can't find one person for myself, but it's actually what happens because it's so fast. It's like a fast fashion. This is fast dating. We're like going through so fast in relationship. It's like, hello, blah, 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 you know, and it's sad, you know, we don't have time to really feel each other anymore like it used to be.
You know, in my previous marriage, we used plasticware a lot, as most people do nowadays. But there was one thing that I did with the plastic cups. I made each child write the first letter of their name, which means that my youngest, who had the same first initial as me, we would mix up cups all the time. But we would take a marker and write the first letter of your name on the cup and leave it by the sink and use it for a day or two. I'm not saying I want them to get sick from salmonella or something, but the idea that you don't just take something and throw it out. So it's difficult. And it's so rough because you got millions of people and you can do all this stuff, but it's all throwaway. It's like, next. And there's that full sense of being chased by these men who don't give a good woman. I was just giving this example the other day. I don't think it's fair for a president and somebody who's trying to become a president to have a debate, because a president can only talk about what he's done. A president who's trying to become president, he can promise the world and then he won't come through. But by that time, it's too late. And it's the same thing. You're sitting there meeting a guy, or let's turn it around so you don't look like the villain. This guy is meeting a girl and he's like, oh, she's great, but you know, and then he's looking and he's like seeing that girl and that girl. And he's like, oh, I could do so much better. But those are presidents that have not really proven themselves yet. Go meet them in real life. And, you know, back in the day, it wasn't like that. You had to put in the work.
Yes, same in relationships, you know, same in people. It's like we feel we can do better, but actually no. Then 10 years later, you're like, oh my God, this is a huge mistake, you know. I should have stayed with this person, like never start to, you know. And this is true to me now. You know, I remember like a relationship broke 20 years ago. It was like, what I was looking for. Why would I walk away from such a wonderful person? And that's what illusions with the city, you know, you feel like, but let's not forget that every year you gain like, it's like a hand me down.
Well, first of all, I mean, based on my math, it sounds like you were in a relationship when you were 3. But that aside, what I don't, you have to keep in mind that you're thinking back to then. You're also being a little difficult on yourself because you were a different person and you saw the world differently. And there might have been something about that person that now you forgot how much it drove you crazy. Because it's easy, you know.
When you think now, it's like, oh my God, I could have changed that, or I could have actually, that was not a big deal, you know.
Right. Well,
but
you know,
then it's like, I can do better. And that's
Absolutely.
a mistake with young people, you know. We don't want to stick around. We don't want to work on anything else. We just want to move. And then we really lose something wonderful in our lives.
Right. It's interesting. As you know, I'm married to a Dominican, and it's a totally different culture. And what's interesting is every once in a while, not lately, it's just coming to my mind now, but I've considered that when I was a teenager, all the girls were very, very similar. They were a certain type because they went to the same school, from the same neighborhood. And
Yeah.
so you don't even know that you don't even know that there's a whole nother world out there. But the truth of the matter is that they say youth is wasted on the young. And if only we could have made decisions different. Not that, I mean, I love my wife, but I'm saying in general, the idea that you don't know when you're a kid that as you get older in life, the world becomes smaller. You have less people in your circle.
That's absolutely true. Yes.
You're 20 years old and you got 100 friends and
you have a world. Yeah.
Yeah. So
especially
really
now. Yeah, especially now. You travel, you can just, it's one plane stop away, from go to anywhere in the world right now. But again, it's soulmates. And when you feel like, the pandemics taught me a lot. It's like, if you can stand this person in one room for a few hours with you, and you can, you're not get upset or you're not fighting, you're just enjoying yourselves. I think you can stay for longer than that. That's what I learned. The pandemics taught me a lot, No,
absolutely. That is no question. I think that I think it destroyed some marriages at the same time too.
Yes, absolutely.
But you're right.
Nobody expected to be in a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments like in New York. And for that long time, it's like, oh my God, he's not or she's not going to work, and the kids and so
it's funny. You make me with your cute little dog there. You make me think that so there were these extremes, like we were hearing out of China that people were stuck in their apartment. And then on our side, we weren't supposed to go outside, but we were trusted to a degree. And then you have this video that surfaced that I think is the funniest thing that came out of COVID. It was like, nobody thought of this. How do you resolve the following situation? You have an older lady in her 70s, 80s, who needs to walk her dog. So she's Israeli, so of course she's creative. What does she do? She has those harnesses, and she has the leash on the harness, and she stands on her balcony, lowers the dog down, lets it go around in a circle, and then pulls it back up again. I thought that was COVID in a nutshell. But yeah, there was a lot to be learned from those days.
Wow.
So let me ask you a question.
Back to dating.
Yes, dating.
Yeah. For any girls out there, I would recommend a Jewish boy. Honestly. I know we spoke about it, and it's I tell you why, and also for me as a Russian, we grew up with this sense that even my mother told me, like, you better Jewish guy, because Jewish husband, very family oriented, right? And that's true, because I've been married to one, and very family oriented. It's true.
Of course, we grew up within a community.
And it's very familiar to our culture, like Russian culture, right? Because mothers in our culture stays with the boy first 45 years, right? Okay. And then next 20, she would tell you, I told you so. So same with the Jewish religion, Jewish mothers, they're very close to their sons. And they basically the wife doesn't have to do anything anymore. The mother made him perfect for marriage, when the flowers have to be house, he have to be a provider, he have to be a good boy in the family, you have to take care of the family. So
all right, now I'm not letting my wife see this video. I don't size up. But it's funny because growing up, people always said that like Italians and Jews are the most alike. And I agree with you. I don't think that's a true statement. I see similarities between Spanish cultures and the Jews. I see similarities between the Russians and the Jews. I think just because of, there's certain stark things that stand out about Italians that we're compared to them. But I think the world's a small place, I guess.
Absolutely. We share so much food. Like my ex-husband would ask me to cook something, and then I cook the way my mother did. And he's like, oh my God, this is the same way my mother did it. And
Nice.
it's ocean apart, So
Literally.
yeah.
That's
So I
awesome.
think it's very much so the same way Jewish mothers and Russian mothers, like my grandmother was in my father's life 50 years, she would not go anywhere, and she was so close, and all decisions, it was going through his mother, and,
Right.
my mom would get upset. But again, I wanted to have a mother-in-law like that, honestly.
Okay.
So
Sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for.
yes, actually, I do. Absolutely. So we'll be just quiet about it. But anyway, if you
Well, look,
choose, if women looking for husbands, I think Republican Jewish boys would be the best.
all right. Well, hey, you got my number, so I can't argue.
Well, you
I
married.
think I got to ask you though,
Yeah.
and not to put you on the spot. Do you have a joke? Because your jokes, like, do they flow? Like when you do your comedies, it flow, or can you actually shoot a joke for us on the spot, or it doesn't work that way?
It does sometimes, it all depends on what day of the day, the hour of the day, and
It's Wednesday noon.
it's Wednesday noon, it's a little bit early. But it all depends I have pretty much, I analyze like politics, and I used to be a neighbor with the Trump for about 10 years. We live in one building, and of course I will support Trump when he was elected president. And then I was thinking why I like Trump so much, because I saw Melania and how happy she was, and he was a pretty good husband. So I would vote Trump.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That is, I guess when you're living near somebody, you see things that other people don't see. I
absolutely.
that's since you seem to be very keen on politics, I feel like it's we've gone from when we were kids, where we just watched shows, to where Europe started bringing this, like, people watching each other living their lives, what's it called again, where people like Housewives of LA or whatever.
Yeah,
And then
reality TV.
reality TV, right? And then it elevated to politics. And all of a sudden, like, everybody's a politician, not even necessarily by choice, but because that's like what's on TV. And what I always found interesting was that it's just modern technology. It's just social media, meaning people could say whatever they want about Trump, about Biden, about this one, about that one. It's not that these things were or weren't happening in the past. It's just that we just have so much exposure. Like they're literally, it's so open.
Yeah,
20 years ago, they'd find cocaine,
because
they
of
could cover it
social
up.
media.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy. So it's very, very tough, to be out there in the limelight. I
it's tough
mean,
to be politician right now. Yes, because
I
everything
would,
out in the open. You can't hide your private life. You can't hide anything anymore.
yeah,
And if you have an affair, it's going to be come out right away. Somebody already making money on it. A book,
exactly.
signing a book, and TV series, and Netflix.
Yeah, it's
So
the worst enemy. When they're making money, they don't
it's
care
the
how they're
worst
just trying.
time to cheat. I tell you that.
Yeah. And what comes to mind is that there's a certain politician whose career got destroyed because they discovered he was gay. And then a couple of years later, the whole movement of being open and accepting came out. And it's like, poor guy, you know?
Yeah,
Not,
he missed that quote.
if he only, yeah, if he only just, got caught a couple of years later, it probably would have given him votes. Who knows? I mean,
Absolutely.
crazy world. You can't get
Crazy
through a
world.
conversation without saying it's a crazy world.
So maybe Coke another few years will be, legal, and then it will be, oh, let's forget
Yeah,
about that.
yeah, yeah.
Who
Full
cares?
circle. Anyways, thank you so, so much for coming on. I think
Thank
this was
you.
fun. I really appreciate it.
Thank you
You got
for
it.
having me.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye, guys. Bye.